Okay, Assistant Superintendent's report, so we did the audit, so we can do other stuff.
I have a lot of other
We got a lot of other fun
fun
stuff.
facts to report out on. So attached are the reports for the month of September, and this represents 25% of the fiscal year. This begins on Board Book, if you want to look at Board Book page 43. It's our monthly summary report. The total operating revenue for the month was $946,534, with 49% coming from course fees and registration fees. September is one of our biggest months for this because we ask parents at that point to either pay their balance or go on a payment plan to avoid late fees. 26% came from real estate taxes, and we're at about 87% of what we budgeted for in terms of collection for the previous year property taxes. And then 20% came from evidence-based funding, which is our state funding. The total operating expenditures for the month were just shy of $2 million, with 80% towards salary and benefits, 8% coming from building level supplies, which were primarily textbooks and English novels, and then 7% towards operation and maintenance supplies and services. If you go to Board Book page 45, this is part of our monthly financial statements, and you can see the summary of revenues shows that the district has received 39% of our budgeted revenue for the year. This is down from 2% last fiscal year at this time. And again, that's a little concerning as we were more conservative in budgeting for our revenues this year due to COVID. So we're still trying to play a little bit of catch up. And then on Board Book page 46, the summary of expenditures shows that the district has spent 27% of the budgeted expenditures for the year. And this is also down from last fiscal year at this time, which was 30%. For the same reasons I presented last board meeting, we didn't start at the same time, and when we started to pay stipends for the year, as we were working out that MOU, also decreased cost of athletics and not having nearly as many competitions and table workers and referees and things of that nature in August and September. And then also this year, there was a delay in receiving some of our special education tuition invoices. And again, I think that was just due to COVID and people getting up and running. And then lastly, as always in this section, for your information, I provide the statement of revenue and expenditure report for the month of September for you to look at. Additionally, this month, I've provided some information on COVID and the financial impact that it has had on the district. So if you take a look at Board Book page 57, this is a document entitled COVID-19 Budget Analysis 1920 school year. So this is updated from last school year. You've seen this at least once before, but I updated this to look at the final costs. As we've previously discussed, there's been a limited financial impact last school year due to the fact that we collected a majority of our revenue before the shutdown and we saved some money on expenditures. So it did have a negative impact on the district where we lost about $52,000. But like I said, that was very minimal. And you can see all of the revenue, whether we lost revenue for the most part, is what's captured up above. And then on the expenditures, those are things that we had saved money on. So this year, I started to do the same thing, and you can see that on the next page. This is a very, very rough draft because it's only the first quarter, and so I really just put a bunch of placeholders in this document, and it'll be updated when things kind of play out a little bit more this school year. But what I've included for you are things that I've been tracking that are additional purchases above and beyond what would be covered in a supply account in our normal budget. So if you take a look at the buildings and grounds purchases, you can see we've spent approximately $53,000 additionally in buildings and grounds, and that's where a lot of our PPE is coming out of, all of our equipment is coming out of. So that justifies a lot of those costs, and those are all outlined. And then anytime we purchase something out of buildings and grounds related to COVID, we track it on this document. And then the other piece in which we have spent a lot of additional money due to COVID this year is technology. So that's the next tracking document. And again, anytime they purchase something that's specifically related to a need because of COVID, we put that on this tracking document as well. And so that's about $40,000. to date. And then the last thing, again, I'm really looking at things that are outside of things that can be purchased at this point in our normal supply budget. At the end of the year summary, we'll include other purchases as well, but I'm tracking things that, we've had to increase line items in the budget prior to approving the budget. So the schedule boards that we can move to a schedule with 5 lunches, so we could socially distance better, and then lanyards for students to wear IDs when they return, are things of that nature. The other thing I want to point out, this is going back to, same page, Mary Ann, is on page 58 in the board book, you'll see something called Digital Equity Grant. This is a new grant that I applied for. This grant is available only because of COVID, and it's meant to close the digital divide and provide resources to schools, specifically for students, to close that digital divide and help them during remote learning and e-learning and any sort of hybrid. So the district qualified for this grant based on our evidence-based funding percent adequacy level in fiscal year 20. If they had used our fiscal year 19 numbers, we wouldn't have qualified. So we just dipped under the 70% adequacy level of our funding in order to qualify for this. And so you can see we received $122,545. That's based off of the number of free and reduced lunch students is how they calculated that amount that we received. And it's on a reimbursement grant like many of our other grants that we have. And so part of this grant is we are using to pay for Zoom education, used to pay for freshman Chromebooks, things of that nature. And we've already received some of that money this quarter. So that is some additional revenue that wasn't expected that will be really helpful for us. Next in my report, just for your information, as I do every month, I've included this student activity account summary that you can look at your leisure. Just keep in mind negative account balances represent positive fund balances, and there's nothing out of the ordinary. No one's carrying a large balance or anything of that nature. On board book page 66 is something that I added today, and I apologize for adding it today. I've been working really hard with ISB and Quest to get this in advance, but I didn't receive it until this morning. So I have, so what I'm referring to is a contract amendment for Quest Food Services, and this is a first read, but the amendment is a requirement to a grant that I've been working on with ISB and Quest, and the grant is a summer food service program. And this would be applicable for the rest of the year, and it allows the school to provide free lunches to all students, whether they're on free and reduced lunch. And so we need to work out some of the details and how we would get the lunches in students' hands and what that would look like. But that's really exciting that we'd be able to provide food to our families for the entire school year. It is, so this agreement, which basically simply just sets a fixed price for the lunches, would wipe out the management fee. It means that we're not responsible for the management fee that the board previously approved earlier this year. And it's a reimbursement grant, so we would be reimbursed for all costs. So this is, I know it sounds too good to be true, but how, and I asked the same thing, and really it's because there's a lot of money set aside for the National School Lunch Program, and it's not fully being utilized because students aren't in school. And then additionally, $8 million was set aside on top of that. So there's a lot of money that's just not being utilized, and students, aren't receiving the food that they need. So this is very new. St. Charles and Lockport High Schools have already started distributing free lunches to schools or to their students, and then many other schools are in the same boat as us. They're trying to finish the application process. I did talk to ISB late last week, and we've been conditionally approved for this grant. We just need this last piece on file in order to be complete. So this is really helpful. We were anticipating having to spend significant amount of money on Quest to provide free lunches to our students on the free lunch program. And now we'll be able to provide lunch for everybody for free. So again, once this is complete, I'll be working with Quest to work out the details and then pushing all that communication to our families so they're well aware of this opportunity.
So when do you think it might, do you have any sense of when it might start? we might be able to actually offer this?
I would hope at the beginning of November. I don't know, November 2nd is a funny week, so hopefully, the week after
Yeah,
that, we
it's a
can be
short
up and
week.
running, yeah.
Right.
So
this would be
November
like
9th?
a grab-and-go lunch for any student that
Yes,
wanted it?
yes.
Our feeder schools have that already. I know at Hollywood School, the kids all get a lunch, and it's in a bag, and they take it home with them because they're, half-day school. So our feeder schools are already utilizing that.
Yes, and some of our feeder schools are a part of the National School Lunch Program,
Yeah.
which makes it easier. We are not. And so there's additional paperwork, additional approval, and then also coordination with Quest as well. But yes, we plan to, every student that attends can pick up a lunch. Students who are not in attendance can come and pick up a lunch for that day. And then we're currently delivering lunches to students on free lunch that have requested it. So we plan to continue that in some capacity as well. So we need to work out the logistics and how all of this will work, especially with the fluid changing in enrollment, whether we have 25% or we go remote or we have 50% of our students. So we need to have some contingency plans in place for
That's what I was
that.
gonna ask. So like, if we, let's say it comes to be March, and we actually can come back fully, is this still in place?
I believe so, yes. So they have different models. That's a question I need to look into. I know it's certainly if we're all remote, and I know it's whether or not we're part of a hybrid. I don't know if we are all back in person. I would say if we are all back in person and we're a full day, at that point,
We could run food service.
we could run food service,
Right.
and we would be getting revenue to offset the expenditures related to students on free lunch.
So the reason I had Kristen put this in the report is because this is an amendment to the contract, so she's going to continue to work on this and finalize this so that I will need the board to take a vote on this in 2 weeks at the November meeting. Is that correct?
Correct, and I would say too, this is a standard form from ISB. All we do is fill in the meal rates, and the $4.08 is the most that you can get reimbursed for.
But
So
we're
it's-
amending the service agreement we did because we were paying that management fee, correct? So you do need some board action?
I believe I need some board action, yes, at the next
Okay.
meeting. And then lastly, I'd like to report out on the annual wellness screening that we had for staff last week on Wednesday, October 21st. EBC, our insurance cooperative, offers an incentive. This year, it was 0.25% of the district's annual projected premium if we had over 50% of the insured staff members complete the wellness screening. So for the second year in a row, we met this quota, which is really exciting considering we had COVID and all of the challenges associated with COVID. And so we're now eligible to also receive the Tier 2 and Tier 3 incentive, where we could earn up to another 0.5%. So if we earn all three, it's approximately $18,000 to $20,000 for the district. So I want to say a huge thank you to all the staff members that participated. As I mentioned, certainly we had COVID, but you also have to schedule these events out in advance. And so it happened to be the first week we were bringing students back into the building, which wasn't ideal timing. And so we needed 75 people to participate, and we had 77 people participate. So we just met it. And then we also had staff had the opportunity to receive a flu shot at that event as well, and over 67 people took advantage of that too.
Great. Good job, Kristen.
So,
I have, okay.
question, go ahead.
Yeah, I have one question. Any sense of increased or what the device damage looks like for now that we haven't had eyes on Chromebooks for a while?
I would need to touch base with Mike Connors, our Director of Technology, but we've been servicing Chromebooks this entire time, as well as throughout the summer as well if students needed that. So I can get a more detailed answer and bring it back to you.
Thank you.
On these COVID dollars, can we add the forensic charges directly related to those as well?
We'd have to review the bills, Kristen, just have Eileen review them because they'll identify with anything related to COVID or like in the beginning of the school year.
Coming back to school,
Right.
those type of things, cost.
Okay?
And quickly, I just want to say, Kristen, thank you for coordinating the wellness screening. You know, once a year, you know, I look at my vitals and I follow the report. And thanks to this health screening, you know, I take initiative, and many of the staff members feel that as well. And thank you, Kristen, as well, for facilitating this food program, because I know that students that are fed, that leads to increased engagement. It leads to increased academic performance. So thank you very much, Kristen, for your leadership.
Any other questions for Kristen? She gets out easy.